time.
It's so great to see everyone's sightings in the chat box here, and we sure miss seeing everyone in person. We usually have a bunch of field trips and that kind of thing, and haven't been able to do nearly as much as we wanted to over the last year, but we are hoping to have some smaller ones, in-person ones later in the spring, so stay tuned for those. And we'll have lots more opportunities for webinars coming up soon as well. So you'll hear more about those as we get going. And I do want, make sure that you check out the chat box here with our webinar today. You are all muted and your cameras are all off, so you don't have to worry about your hair or any of that kind of stuff. But feel free to use the chat box and put your questions in there. Just make sure that you select that it's going to all panelists and attendees, and that just helps to keep the discussion going between all the other folks that are on the webinar with you today. So, but you can pop your questions in there, and I'll be monitoring the chat box for Jay. And I'll interrupt him periodically when we have a couple of questions, and we can get those questions answered for you. If we don't get to your question during the webinar, we can certainly hang around for a few minutes afterwards as well. So again, welcome. I guess I should tell you, I'm Sara Green. I'm the Executive Director at the South Carolina Wildlife Federation. And we're glad to have you joining us today for our Great Backyard Bird Count and Winter Birding webinar. And we have the wonderful Jay Keck, our Habitat Education Manager, here to tell you all about it today. So Jay, I will let you take it away.
All right, thanks. And just to get to a couple of these questions, one was we had robins harassing a pileated or pileated woodpecker. Is that normal behavior? I don't know. I've never seen that. They kind of feed in different ways, of course. So I don't know what the robins would have against that that large woodpecker, but I don't know. Maybe there were just a bunch of bully robins. I'm not quite sure. Maybe a couple Google searches might help you out there, but I've never heard of that. Someone in Chapin. All right, that's where I am. Let's go get a burger at Higher Grounds afterwards. Another Baltimore Oriole on eating an orange half. I think if I put an orange half out, my my youngest son would probably eat it, but I do need to try that. Because I know it does work. Leucistic chickadee, all sorts of, yeah, maybe a little early for a nest, but maybe. All sorts of birds being seen. I love the folks who listed, 12 different species. And I hope everybody is going to participate in the Great Backyard Bird Count, which begins tomorrow. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And we'll talk about that, the first half of the talk and throughout it, I guess. And then we'll kind of go over some winter species that we kind of hit on earlier this year or late last year in the winter webinar that we have. But my name is Jay Keck. I've been with SCWF now for a couple years, the Habitat Education Manager. So I go and get to see all sorts of folks at large corporations that support us. I get to go to churches and schools and libraries and other public places, or at least I did, and we'll continue to do so when safe again, and help out all the folks that I can to create on their property a place for wildlife, especially birds. I think if you help the birds, you kind of help everything out. So that's what I do. Obviously do a lot of the webinars, and just like Sara said, I hope we can see each other in person at some point this year. So we're going to have a couple classes that we're going to have later on this year in the springtime. In kayaks. So we'll be socially distanced, and we haven't advertised those yet, but be on the lookout for those and hop on, because they will be limited. So the quicker you are at securing your spot, the higher chances of you securing your spot will be. All right, well, I'm going to stop looking at the chat box right now. Sarah's going to take a peek at that while I present. You know, Sarah, whenever, you know, there's a little break or I'm in between slides, feel free to interrupt and ask me those questions, so I'm not, you know, talking for 45 minutes in a row. And we'll go ahead and kick it off here. So, you know, gosh, I started birding about 10 years ago. And I remember maybe the first winter, it was probably the first winter, I was living in Pittsburgh, and my dad down in South Carolina, he had called me and said, he's always, you know, telling me what I need to do. And he said, you need to check out the Great Backyard Bird Count. And I was like, what in the world is that? And he kind of told me about it. So I Googled it and found it. And I just remember, you know, that year in Pittsburgh, one of my cool birds that I love seeing in the snow was a dark-eyed junco. You know, you think about, and we have them here too. You think about that charcoal or slate colored a back that they have, and that creamy underside. It's just a beautiful bird to see against the snow. And chickadees and what else? Even goldfinch, you know, there, and some bluebirds there in the wintertime. And I remember thinking it was just so cool to submit what I'm seeing onto this website, and thinking about scientists actually using what I'm doing at my little house in Pittsburgh for science and for conservation. So, you know, that's what it is. You know, it's the largest database for citizen science project in the entire world, I believe. And you contribute to that, even in the springtime and fall time. And this, I don't think, is really related to the Great Backyard Bird Count, but they have maps that are actually in motion to show you when birds are coming up to North America and going back down to South America, Central America, based on people like us submitting those sightings. They use that for real data. It'll help you find birds. And it's really good for birds and for the conservation. So I hope y'all participate if you've never done it, and if you have done it, I hope you're participating again this year. So these are some of our more common feeder and garden birds. Remember, Eric Shealy, if you haven't seen it, look up Abyss to Abundance, one of our webinars that we had. It's on our YouTube page, but he's one of the horticulturalists at Riverbank Zoo, and he doesn't call his yard a yard anymore. He calls it his garden, whether that's his front garden or back garden. But let's start calling it a garden, because that's what it should be, right? But these are some of our more common garden birds, and I think probably all were listed by you guys whenever we were just kind of chatting before we got started here. But we have some beautiful, and this is what I'm thinking might be what you're thinking is a yellow-throated vireo. You know, see if they have those jet black wings. If so, you definitely have a goldfinch. Then we have, so these are American goldfinch. We have some house finch right here, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. That's my dark-eyed junco that I love so much in Pittsburgh, and a beautiful northern cardinal, a nice male. And then we have tufted titmouse, Carolina chickadee, and a Carolina wren. And most of y'all are going to be familiar with those. And whenever you submit your counts, you're probably going to have all of these species, I would imagine. So we kind of touched on the GBBC a little bit earlier, but it was launched in 1998 by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology and National Audubon Society. In 2009, it expanded up to Canada. And then in 2013, it became a global project. So it's really grown. And I have right here, watch the map. If you go onto the website, if you just Google GBBC or Great Backyard Bird Count, you'll be able to navigate all over the place, and you'll find this map, and you can see the sightings as they are submitted across the entire world. So, you know, you could submit one and all of a sudden a bubble comes up in South Carolina. But then, you know, India, Australia, China, Russia, wherever a birder may be that's participating, you see these little bubbles, you know, pop up on this worldwide map, which to me kind of is mind blowing and very, very cool. So think about these scientists gathering data all across the world because of people like us who just want to count birds and help out and get some enjoyment from it too. So the GBBC was the first online citizen science project to collect data on wild birds and to display results in real time, or as close to real time as possible. So that's what it is. So how do you participate if you've never done it before? So a requirement is to count birds for a minimum of 15 minutes, whatever day that you're doing it. But you don't have to do it just for 15 minutes. You could do it for 6 hours if you want to go and take a long walk, which does happen. I know birders, and I'm probably one of them, that have walked 5, 6, 7 hours, to watch birds. But you can do it 15 minutes one time a day, or you can do it 15 minutes, 30 times a day, however long that equals. So there's really no limit, but they do want you to count for at least 15 minutes. And we have a beautiful Anhinga here, and that's a bird that some people will see, especially down in the coast. Everybody in Charleston has a good chance of seeing one, especially if you go to a quieter cove or a pond that's kind of secluded, or even a golf course. We'll have some. So down in the coastal areas, you probably have more of a chance to see one of these. Here in the Midlands where I am, we might see one, but chances are, especially around me in Chapin, right at the base of the Piedmont, we probably won't get those birds here. But what happens if you can't identify a bird? I want to go over that with y'all, so y'all know what to do. And you can submit your sightings for the Great Backyard Bird Count on Merlin Bird ID. That's this right here, allaboutbirds.org. All right, and that's a website, and I'm hopefully going to be able to show you that here in a second. Or the Ebird app. So you can download the Ebird app on your phone. You have to sign up; it's free to have an Ebird account. But you can download the app on your phone, and whatever you put down in that app will be recorded in the Great Backyard Bird Count. So go to the Ebird app, allaboutbirds.org, Merlin Bird ID, and you can just go to the Ebird website, and that'll record all your sightings. So if you do have the Merlin Bird ID and you don't know what bird you're looking at, I want to kind of go over that with you. So you pull it up, right? You click on the little icon on your phone, and you get to that page right there. All right, that's the first page. It says Start Bird ID. So you click right there, and it helps you. It says, where did you see the bird? All right, and so I'm in Lexington, so I click Lexington, South Carolina. It says, when did you see the bird? All right, so whenever I took that screenshot, it was February 10th, and it says, what size was the bird? So, I clicked on one of these. I probably clicked on one right here or here, and we'll get to the next page. It says, what were the main colors? So I was just kind of messing around, and I put red or rufous and yellow. And it says, was the bird ... So it could either be eating at a feeder, swimming or wading, on the ground, trees, bushes, fence or wire, or soaring or flying are the options. So you click on one of those, right? And then it gives you options. Sometimes, I've seen 12, 13, 14 options before. I can't remember how many options this gave me in this instance, but I just took a screenshot of it, and I pulled these two birds up. We kind of chopped off a male eastern towhee right here, but pretty accurate, right? 9 times out of 10, the bird that you're looking at is going to be in here. It's going to be listed in here, but it's also going to list other birds that it could be, right, based on the colors and all that information that you submitted. So let's try. I want to try doing that right now. And this is a beautiful picture from a photograph from Teresa Kopek, and that she submitted during our photo contest last year. But you have a beautiful great blue heron, a great egret right here, and a gorgeous snowy egret. And sometimes when you see a snowy egret flying, especially in the distance, you're like, is that a snowy egret or a great egret? It's a lot easier whenever they're standing side by side, isn't it? So I just love the size differences here, and I just really love that photograph. But let's try to use Merlin Bird ID. And Sarah, if you don't mind, just kind of telling me if this is working. I'm going to go slow. But can you see All About Birds website right now?
It's still on your slideshow.
Okay, give me just a second. Let me go back.
I have to stop share and then reshare. Yep. All right. I love that picture with the different sizes. Those egrets have gotten me before too.
Isn't that neat? And with that being said, you don't have to, if you don't know what it is, don't put it down. You can put, I think they probably have an option for egret species. So if you don't know, just put egret species. At least that gives them something to go on. Can you see the website now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So if you're on Merlin, or I'm sorry, allaboutbirds.org, you can go down here. You see where it says try Merlin, and it's basically the same thing as the app. Okay, so let's go to try Merlin, and I'm already logged in. Okay, so if you don't have an account, it'll probably prompt you to do that, and then you just email and sign up, whatever your password might be, and it's free, so it's super easy. So you start bird ID. And I'm just going to kind of take my time here a little bit since I'm on the internet. Hopefully it's going smoothly. So where did you see this bird? I don't know. Anybody have any suggestions of where we saw this bird? Let's see. I'll put Greenville, and look, it automatically pops up. All right. When did you see it? Let's say today. So what size was the bird? And I'm going to test y'all in just a second. So it says sparrow sized or smaller. All right, so I'm going to pick buff brown, and you can pick up to 3 colors. Yeah, 1 to 3 colors. I'm going to pick buff brown, a little bit of yellow, and olive green. Can anybody think it's a small bird? What's buff brown? Maybe a little bit of yellow and olive green. Are there any guesses out there? And I want y'all to try to think about that. What olive green bird, yellow bird, buff brown bird do we have here that's tiny in South Carolina in the wintertime? And I don't know if anybody's submitting anything, Sarah, but if you have any people guessing, let me know.
We've got painted bunting, pine warbler, pine siskin, goldfinch, female goldfinch.
I like it. Nobody's thinking about the one that I'm thinking about right now, but I'm going to put, this isn't one that
we got Kinglet, orange crowned warbler, Carolina wren.
All right. I like the way somebody's thinking. So look, I clicked on, where did I see it? I saw it flitting around in the bushes. So that's what I clicked on. And let's go here. I think I can scroll down. Sorry, my face is in the way on my screen. So yeah, we had golden crown kinglet somebody said kinglet. So golden crown kinglet is the first option that comes up, right? Remember, we put olive green, yellow, and kind of brownish buffy. Pine warbler was one that somebody had suggested, and that's on the list too, but that wasn't the bird. Those two weren't the birds. Look, an orange crown warbler. Whoa, that's pretty close, right? Kind of greenish, but that's not my bird. Oh, there's a pine siskin. That was another bird that somebody had mentioned. So great guesses. American goldfinch is another one that somebody said. And there is the bird that I saw right there. It's a ruby crowned kinglet. Thank God I had Merlin to help me out because I have never seen that bird before. And it's a relatively common bird here in the wintertime, and I'm going to teach y'all how to find that bird if you want to see that. And the cool thing about that bird is it has a nice little flashy red mohawk, like a buddy of mine back in college. I went to college at Charleston. We were kind of funny back then. But it's a great little bird, and it also pulled up a European starling for some reason. I guess maybe that could be green. You got the yellow right there. So y'all get the idea. I'm going to stop share now, and I'm going to go back to my presentation. And let me share that. Okay. So I hope my presentation is back up and y'all can see that.
Yeah, looks good.
And I hope that was easy to follow, but remember, allaboutbirds.org will help you with those identifications. If you don't have that Merlin app or a smartphone to download the Merlin app onto, but if you do have the Merlin app, you can do it there. It's the same exact thing. Another thing that I want y'all to think about, because these birds aren't going to be just in 1s and 2s and 3s, they're going to be in flocks like this. So how do we estimate a flock? Again, when we were talking before we started the presentation, I was talking about how many birds that I had on the at my feeder, and I had just spread a ton of food on the ground. So I had 40 plus goldfinch, 40 plus pine siskin, which is a pretty high number for me at least. So how do we estimate those? What we like to do, the cool people that bird like I do, we like to just kind of take a piece of the flock and count those birds real quickly. So you have just in this top area, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So let's just call it 10, right? And then basically what you do is you just kind of eyeball, and you can do this, it's not that hard. You just kind of eyeball, 10 birds based on that size right there. So let's say 1, 2, 3-ish, 4, okay, because they're spread out. Maybe 5 right here because they're spread out. 6, 7, 8, and 9. So so easily you can say, all right, there's around 90. Now I did count these birds, and I probably did miss some, and there were 102. So 90 it's not that far off, right? So if you're trying to get a decent estimate of birds, that's a really great method to use. And again, I counted it after I did it myself. I had around 90, and then the actual bird count is somewhere right at 100. So not too far off. So I want y'all to try. All right, I want y'all to participate if you are not too shy. Nobody's going to judge you. I was off, on this count. Everybody's going to be off, but I want y'all to take a peek at these pictures and do what these folks did down here. All right, take a section, count the birds. There's about 10 birds here. All right, and look at this picture, or look at this one, and try to estimate how many birds are in this flock based on this circle. And we'll do it over here too, and I'll tell y'all the answer. So I'll see if I can look at the chat box too, but I want y'all to do this, please. Because you're going to need to do it while you're participating in the Great Backyard Bird Count. So give me just a second. I'm going to pull up the chat box, but please estimate, or Sarah, I don't know if you can just tell me.
Okay, we've got a couple 90s, 110, 100, 120, 90, 120, 80, all kind of in that area.
We have some really, really close ones. So my guess was 120 as well for y'all 120 folks. So let's see what my son says. He's going to give us an answer here in just a second. Hopefully y'all can hear it.
118.
All right. So you 120ers were pretty good. And I've had some practice doing this, but that was really good. The folks that had 80 or 90, I mean, you're really not too far off. If somebody would have said 280, you might need to call me afterwards, and we'll go over this in practice. But you're going to get a pretty good idea of how many there are. Now this flock is flying, so how do you do that? And obviously that's tougher. It's easier to do it whenever you have a picture like this that's still. So here, there's about 25 birds, what they're telling us down here. So you think about that and have a little estimate down there. So if y'all don't mind, just tell us again how many birds you think are in this little raft of gulls that we have here. I'll give you a little bit of time. And it's okay to be wrong. Probably everybody is going to be wrong. Here, you're muted, Sarah.
There we go. 150, 140, 165, 150, 125, 180,
cool.
110, 175, 250, 200. So kind of all over the board. 100, 120.
Let's see what Rowan says.
206.
Nice. All right. So even the 250 isn't that far off. I guess if I was estimating, I'd try. I don't know what's better for science, overestimating or underestimating. I would imagine under, but you're trying your best. If you feel like you have a gut feeling that it might be over, try reducing that. Most of the people that I know try to underestimate instead of overestimating. So I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's what most of us do. So just a couple tricks on how to estimate birds that are in a flock, because you will see that. All right, so we've talked about American goldfinch and some pine siskin, but even if you don't see the bird during the GBBC, you can still count that bird, and it's a way to count birds that's quote legal. If they do count if you just hear birds any time of the year. It doesn't have to be just during the GBBC. So let's practice some of those sounds, man. And if you get a flock of 30, 40, 50 pine siskin, they can be quite loud. So let's listen to those right now. So that upward crescendo, that right there. And when there's, again, 20, 30, 40 of them, you hear that nonstop. And there's really not another bird that I can think of that's going to sound like that this time of year. They'll have another sound because they are related. These two birds, they have another sound that kind of sounds like a goldfinch. But once you hear that, you've got a pine siskin. So let's hear a goldfinch. So that's the potato chip call, and they do that while they're flying. So potato chip, and that one did potato chip chip. Isn't that neat? So potato chip chip. And a lot of times you'll be walking, you'll be looking eye level or below, and then all of a sudden, 60 yards up in the air, over behind you, you hear that potato chip. So even if you don't see that bird, you can count it on your count, okay? You can include it on your count. Now, if you don't know if it was just one bird or, 30 birds, 30 American goldfinch, you can just put an X by that sighting. And that just means you don't know, but you do know it was an American goldfinch, if that makes sense. So remember to use your ears, okay, while you're out there. So 3 warblers and a vireo. It sounds like a weird joke, but these are some of the warblers that we will see in our counts this year. Y'all down in the coast, you'll have a better chance at getting a yellow-throated warbler. I think one of the most stunning warblers that we have coming through or actually breeding in our state. We have pine warblers. Those are going to be all over the place in pretty good numbers, right? They're a year-round bird for us, but for folks up in the northern part of the United States, the eastern side of the United States, that's just going to be a bird that they see during the breeding season. So they'll migrate down to South Carolina. So we tend to see a lot more pine warblers in the wintertime. They can really cover your feeders during the winter. They love suet, and a lot of these warblers that we're going to talk about do like suet. Yellow rump warblers, the butter butts that somebody had mentioned down in the Charleston area. There's the butter on its butt, but great bird. They'll clean your wax myrtles, just strip them of all their little berries or seeds in no time. And black and white warbler, somebody had mentioned one in the Columbia area. I don't have a picture of it, but it's a small bird that's a warbler that looks like a zebra. So if just imagine this bird that had this pattern all over its body. No yellow, no clear belly. It looks like a zebra. So that's a black and white warbler. And again, someone had seen a yellow warbler not too long ago. And then we also have orange crowned warblers here in the wintertime. Most of these birds are going to be in pretty small numbers. The warblers that will be in larger numbers are the pine warbler and the yellow rumped warbler right here. And you have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful blue-headed vireo. And these guys will even start singing in the early springtime before they head back up to their northern breeding territory. But right now they kind of make funky noises. And here's a sound that they make right now. So if you hear the sound and you've never seen one this winter, go and find it. Okay, so use your ears to find these birds. That sound. They make other sounds too. Again, go to Merlin, Bird ID, or allaboutbirds.org. You can practice the sounds. I guarantee you're going to see way more birds if you practice these sounds. The yellow rump warbler just has a chip call. I'm not going to play that right now. These are some of the more colorful birds that you can see here in South Carolina in the wintertime. Now, again, y'all in Charleston or the coastal areas, y'all get a lot of the colorful birds down there. You're a little bit warmer than we are here. All right, so the nuthatches. This has been a fantastic year for red-breasted nuthatches. They'll come to feeders. All of these will come to feeders. So it's really neat when you can count all 3 birds for the Great Backyard Bird Count during one 15-minute sitting. It's a pretty neat thing. It's something to pat yourself on the back for. But here are the sounds, for all 3 of these species. If you don't have feeders up, pop them up, and you might not get the birds during the Great Backyard Bird Count, but you'll get them before they, well, at least this one leaves for the summertime or springtime. And everybody in South Carolina should be pretty familiar with that call. That's of the brown-headed nuthatch right here. It's the smaller of the 3. It's the smallest of the 3, and it kind of sounds small, doesn't it? Sounds like a squeaky toy. And if you have pine trees, you're probably going to have this bird. If you don't have pine trees, you're probably not going to have that bird. All right, to me, that sounds like this one, but let's listen to this one real fast. No quip. All right, so I made a mistake, and that's okay. I want y'all to make mistakes. All right, so this one is the red-breasted nuthatch. It sounded kind of in between the red-breasted nuthatch and the white-breasted nuthatch. It was a little bit deeper than I would expect. But this one is the white-breasted nuthatch. See how deep that is? And it's the biggest one out of the 3. So this one here, the red-breasted, kind of sounds like a combination of the 2 or one in between. Someone said, I've heard 2 descriptions of this call. Someone said it sounds like the debit card machine, at the grocery store whenever, you're taking your card out or whenever it's grabbed your money, right? And then somebody said the other day that it sounds like a truck backing up. So I think those are ways to remember these sounds, right? To help you be a better birder. Two birds that kind of sound similar. We have the Cedar Wax Wing here this time of year. And then we have the brown creeper. Now this bird's going to feed kind of like a nuthatch, but it's going to spiral down towards the base of the tree and kind of creep back up. And it sticks really close to the tree, but I've read that a description of its call is someone taking a light chain, a steel chain, and just kind of slowly dropping it. If that makes sense. I think everybody can probably imagine what that sounds like. The recording that I found is short versions of that, but you can really hear this and kind of imagine that when you're out in the field. We were cleaning out bluebird boxes in Blythewood a couple weeks ago, and while we were doing it, I heard one of these. It had that chain dropping sound. It probably lasted a second or 2, and sure enough, I was able to put a couple people on that brown creeper. That wasn't too far away from us. Without it calling, I would have never seen the bird. That quick, but it's way higher than that. That's what you're listening for. It's not the best example, but I think you get the idea. But it's super high pitch, and it is broken. And that is a bird that you can find out there. You can see it, without hearing it. But if you do practice its call, you'll be able to find that bird more easily. And here's a Cedar Wax Wing, really high pitch, just like the brown creeper, but a lot airier and a little bit, I guess, more constant. And you're usually going to hear these in big flocks or see these in big flocks. A lot of those birds are kind of hard to hear, especially those high pitched ones. Yes, ma'am.
We did have someone just say these were out of his hearing range. And we got a couple questions. We had a comment earlier too that someone had some bluebirds checking out the nesting boxes in their backyard already. And so it is a good time for bluebirds to be looking for nesting boxes. So the question, there are a couple of questions. First one, and this may be coming up. Can Jay help me distinguish a pine warbler versus a goldfinch? I think I might have both at my feeders, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Let's look at the pine warbler real fast. Now this is a beautiful bright male, and they can still look like that during the winter time. Now the problem is immatures, and especially immature females, can look almost brown, and some are brown, and they'll gain a little bit of color as they mature. So the in-betweeners are probably the ones that are going to give you the hardest time. Let's take a peek at the goldfinch though, okay? And you can't see the side of this pine warbler, but it does not have black wings, okay? You see every single one of these goldfinch has black wings. So black, 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 black. And what else do you notice? You notice this huge wing bar, okay? One wing bar, one wing bar, one wing bar, one wing bar. The pine warbler is not going to have that. It's going to have two wing bars that are not going to be contrasting as much as these are. So when you have white against black, those are really contrasting colors. The wing bars on the pine warbler are going to be a little bit more muted against the coloration since it's not white and black. So if white and black wings, you've got goldfinch. Now the pine siskin, can also have, because remember they're related, right? Can also have the black-ish wings and that wing bar, but look how streaky this bird is. I mean, if you see streaks and then a little bit of yellow and some black on the wings, you don't have a house finch, you don't have an American goldfinch, you have a pine siskin. And if it makes this sound again, that kind of crazy Star Warsy, weird sound, you definitely have a pine siskin. And remember that if you can hear them, they'll tell you what they are. A pine warbler is probably not going to sing too much or call too much at the feeder. You'll hear them in the pine trees, even right now, do their beautiful little trill. But the goldfinch will be kind of vocal still. And so practice their calls and they'll tell you what they are at your feeder. So American goldfinch here, and there's the pine warbler there. Now remember, that's a beautiful yellow male, and I'm starting to see some that are brightening up, the American goldfinch that are brightening up. So if you see one that's bright, don't think automatically it's a pine warbler. If it has this black wing with this huge wing bar in it, you've got an American goldfinch. And look at that bill too. It's conical, shaped like a cone, as opposed to, well, this one's open, but it's a little bit, well, you can see the warblers. You see how long and pointy they are, and they're not thick at all. They're well, I don't know what kind of shape you would describe. It looks like a long pointy grain of rice. As compared to this one right here, where it looks like somebody shoved an ice cream cone in its face. So
that's true. Jay, do you get the pine warblers at seed feeders? I see them at suet feeders, and then I see the goldfinches at the seed feeders. But
yeah. So I do get them at suet. The warblers in general do come to the suet way more than, in my experience, way more than they go to the seeds. But I have seen them at seeds too. But yeah, if you're not putting suet out at your house, you're kind of limiting what you're going to be seeing at your house. So, or wherever you might be. So put that suet up. And they make suet cages that stand alone without any seed around them. But one of my favorite feeders is the hopper feeder that has the seeds in the middle. And then you have two cages on the sides, and you put, suet right here and suet right there. And then you have all sorts of birds coming to that one feeder. But, if you have some places to throw some seed down on the ground, you can get tons of siskin and goldfinch and purple finch and house finch and, man, just all sorts of birds. Really fun to kind of just experiment like that.
Jay, there's one other question back to the brown creepers. I thought the brown creeper worked up the tree and the nuthatch worked down.
Yeah, the nuthatch.
Habits like that?
Yeah. So the brown creeper, the first time I saw one, I was deer hunting in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh. And, for any of you non-hunters out there, just know that I'm a terrible hunter, especially now. All I do is look at birds the entire time. I move around too much, and I haven't harvested a deer in a very long time. But you know, sitting in the woods quietly, you know, does give you the opportunity for birds to get used to you. And you see just these great things. So the first time I ever saw one, it was all puffy. It was probably trying to stay warm, and went to the bottom of a tree and just started kind of spiraling up that tree. And then it went down to the next tree and started spiraling up that tree too. So I got to see that behavior, which I had never heard of before. I'd never seen that bird, never heard of that bird before. And it was really cool. Now a nuthatch will, you know, go all over the tree. It'll go sideways, it'll go up, it'll go down. You know, it'll go on branches. Typically for a brown creeper, in my experience, you know, they'll go up the larger portions of the trunk and maybe some larger branches as well. But that's a good question, good observation. Did I get to all the questions?
We had one just come in. How do you keep squirrels off of feeders?
Oh, that's easy. All you have to do is invest in a $20 or a $30 predator guard. It's an upside down cone. Get a good one. You know, don't cut a milk jug, you know, apart and tape that on, you know, to form an upside down cone. It's going to deteriorate, and then you're going to have plastic all over your yard. You just want to buy one. It'll last for 20 years. So what, you know, $20 divided by 20 years, you know, it's $1 a year. Get one, you'll be happy you did, but just install that below your feeder. It'll make it impossible for anything to climb up it. Maybe a skinny snake might be able to climb up, you know, through the hole, but that's probably not going to happen either. But make sure you don't put it next to a tree too. So you could have a beautiful predator guard installed the right way, but if it's 3 feet from a tree, a squirrel's going to jump from that tree right onto the feeder, and then, you know, you still have the same problem. So make sure it's around 7 feet from the nearest tree, and make sure you have a predator guard up, and it'll eliminate the problem. I mean, you know, I don't want to guarantee anything, but almost 100%. Don't put it a foot or two above the ground, because they'll just jump right over it. You know, put it, you know, 3-4 feet, you know, up the pole. I would put it 4 feet up the pole, so they don't jump over the predator guard.
True. Okay. I'll monitor the chat box for a couple of other questions. We've got about 15 minutes left, Jay, just for a time check. But we can certainly, you know, stay on for some questions at the end as well. So I'll keep a list of these questions here, and we will go, but I'll let you go on with your slide.
All right, so purple finch, you know, it's one of my favorite birds to see in the wintertime. It's been a fantastic year for them. Pine siskin, red-breasted nuthatch, purple finch. They've been in South Carolina in pretty darn big numbers this year. A nice eruption year usually means that there's a shortage of food for those birds up north, which is sad for them, but they have to migrate down here. But it's great for us, and we get to see birds that, you know, we don't get to see every single year. So let's talk about the house finch and the purple finch a little bit. Once you get used to seeing these males, you can almost immediately, even if you don't see the parts that I'm going to talk about, you can almost immediately tell that they're not a house finch. Okay. Say if it was looking away from you, look at all this purple, all this, you know, red, whatever color that is, I guess, technically. Look at all this, and the house finch, even the male, doesn't really have that. Could you have a really striking mature male that's really colorful? Yeah, but there's other things to look at too. You can see this little patch of gray right here. The entire head of this purple finch is all you know, purple. It has these areas here, the eyebrow, the supercilium right here. That these don't really have. I know it does have the red here, but it doesn't have the red here. It doesn't have the red here. So it does have a red eyebrow, but remember, this entire head, for the most part, is always going to be, you know, covered in what somebody called, you know, it looked like it was dipped in raspberry. Some old naturalist back in the day is how he described this bird. So it has a few more features, you know, on its head. It has a lot more color on the entire body, and the coloration is a little bit deeper than the male house finch. Now and they're going to be a little bit bigger. Once you start seeing them side by side, you'll say, oh, okay, they are bigger. And you can see the size difference. I'm not sure, what their measurements are, but you can go to allaboutbirds.org and they'll give you the measurements. But when you see them side by side, it's kind of like that snowy egret and the great egret, not that drastic, but you'll see how much bigger the purple finch is compared to the house finch. All right, so we take the females, and this does kind of look like a female rose-breasted grosbeak because it has the markings right here. You can see the female here of the house finch doesn't have that. So use size, okay? It's going to be a little bit bigger than the house finch here on the right, and use these markings right here on the face. This house finch typically is not going to have that. And go to allaboutbirds.org, click on purple finch. It'll give you on the identification tab, it'll give you birds that look like it. It will pull up a house finch and you can look at them side by side. Okay. You can look at the female side by side. You can look at a, immature male side by side to another immature male. It's really cool, and it'll help you become a better birder. So, allaboutbirds.org. Savannah Sparrow and a Lincoln Sparrow. I wanted to include the Lincoln Sparrow today because so many people around Lexington or the Midlands have been seeing, a few of those species. They're very, very similar to a Savannah Sparrow. A couple things that they have that the Savannah Sparrow don't have is the buffiness right here, which is kind of like a dirty brown. So it looks like, you took up some cocoa powder and just kind of blew it on there and a little bit of it stuck. So it has a little bit of buffiness. And if you have a good pair of binoculars, I know it's kind of faint, but if you have a good pair of binoculars, it's easy to see. So buffy right here, buffy right there. And then you have these fine streaks. Now a song sparrow can look similar to this guy too, but the song sparrow, somebody told me, looks like he took a crayon and colored it with, colored the black streaks with a fat crayon. And with this one, it looked like you took like a pencil, a black pencil or a pencil crayon or whatever you want to call them, and put these fine streaks there. So I thought that was a really good way to describe those two species. The problem with the Savannah Sparrow, it does look like you took that fine pencil and did the same. But remember, it doesn't have that buffiness right here so much as the Lincoln. It doesn't have that gray here. It does. Most of them have this yellow area right here. And so, that'll kind of help you determine what you have. We're going to see way more of the Savannah Sparrows than we will the Lincoln Sparrows, but just in case, and if you're not sure, take a picture or try to take a picture and send it to us, and we'll figure it out for you, or send it to me. And here's that. Let me show you the song sparrow. So remember the Lincoln Sparrow, remember those streaks, and let's look at the song sparrow. See, it looks a lot fatter, those streaks. It looks like a crayon, you used a crayon to make those streaks. So song sparrow here, and that's a bird that you can see, throughout South Carolina in the wintertime. Field sparrow is up here. It's my favorite sparrow. It looks like it was airbrushed. Really, really beautiful bird with a gorgeous eye ring right there. Swamp sparrow, you'll see swamp sparrows and song sparrows in the same area a lot of times, but notice that the swamp sparrow, again, for the most part, you might have one that challenges this, but they're not going to have the streaking that a song sparrow does. It's going to be a little bit grayer around the head, and it's just a little bit smaller of a bird when compared to a song sparrow. White-throated sparrow, especially the ones that look like this, nice mature ones. You kind of can't mistake that for any other bird. They're really large too. So they're going to be all the sparrows that we mentioned here today. It's going to be the largest species. I think the only one that kind of gives it a run for its money size-wise is the white crown sparrow, which we're probably not going to see. And then we have a chipping sparrow here. Everybody's seen one probably. I would say that's our most common sparrow. I probably had 20 or 30 with the goldfinch and the pine siskin today. So these are our sparrows. Again, it takes practice to identify these, but you can do it. All right, and the kinglets that we have here, I'll just play these. If these birds intrigue you and you want to find one, I know I was kind of addicted to these guys whenever I first started getting into birding, so I practice these sounds like crazy, but here's the sound of a golden crown kinglet. So high pitch, a lot of times you hear them in threes. They kind of go so 3 3 3, you know, or 1 2 3. Really high pitch, kind of airy. So those aren't doing it, those aren't vocalizing in threes, but that's kind of what I hear a lot here in South Carolina for whatever reason. So listen to that sound in the trees, and hopefully you'll find one of these. They don't always have their crowns or their mohawks up, but if they're agitated, they will, and they're very stunning. And here's the ruby crown kinglet. So related birds, but they don't sound anything alike. They're kind of raspy, not really high pitch. You know, I don't have anything to kind of compare it to, but you know, it can sound, I guess, like a Carolina wren every now and then. But this is, you're gonna find more of these ruby crown kinglets than the golden crown kinglets, probably. But remember, use your ears, and you'll find these birds if you haven't seen one before. And remember, use those sounds, even if you don't see that bird, use those sounds to make your observations for the Great Backyard Bird Count. And so some of the woodpeckers, this is the one that the pileated was the one that somebody said was being chased or harassed by some robins. You can't really mistake that sound for anything else. That's the one that gives you chills whenever you're outside, right? You have the yellow-bellied sapsucker here. In the top right, and that sounds like a drunk cat is the way I describe it. Right? The cat had a little too much to drink. And that's a beautiful picture by Zach Steinhauser. It's a beautiful picture of a nice male yellow-bellied sapsucker. And that's one that we only get in the wintertime, and they'll leave in the springtime. What's fun is to watch these guys in the springtime. You know, they're getting sap here, they're getting some sugar, right? But they're also trapping insects. So yellow rump warblers will follow them. You know, hummingbirds, even when they come up and the yellow-bellied sapsucker is still here, they'll follow them, trying to get to those insects that are stuck in there. They're really fun to watch in the springtime. Anytime, but the springtime especially. Downy woodpecker, our smallest one, and that's its call. Real. It sounds like a small bird, kind of like a quickly bouncing ball. And then a northern flicker, and that was an owl. Flick, flick, flick. So you'll hear that, right? But you'll also hear that keer. That sound right there. That's usually the sound that you hear, although they do that flick, 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 flick call all the time. And that's the bird. Remember, we put in, I think, red and yellow, or I did a couple days ago, and that's one of the birds that it brought up because of this yellow coloration under its wings here, and then you know, the red right there. Really beautiful bird. So red-headed woodpecker versus the red-bellied woodpecker. A lot of people think they have a red-headed woodpecker because of what you see right here. It has a lot of red on the head, right? But this is your red-headed woodpecker. It's got a complete hood, you know, for the red covering its head, and it has these huge black and white patches. So a lot of black and white. If it doesn't have any stripes, you know, it has a red head. You probably have a red-headed woodpecker. If you have a reddish head with a lot of stripes, okay, that laddering, you have a red-breasted or red-bellied, red-bellied woodpecker. And let's look at listen to the sounds real fast. Kind of harsh. It's one of the harsher sounding birds that we have here in South Carolina. And if you have a lot of snags around your property, or if you live around a lake or a pond that has, you know, dead trees that are still standing, especially the ones that don't have any bark, they really like those trees. The thought is, you know, it prevents predators from easily climbing up those trees without bark. You'll probably have some of these red-headed woodpeckers, but the red-bellied woodpeckers are kind of everywhere. A little bit more musical, not as harsh. And then they do that that coughing sound there. So relatively common bird right here. Well, pretty common bird. And then this one, you have to be in the right habitat to see that bird. Usually found, you know, near water. So we have 3 beautiful owls, and I know I only have a few minutes left. So we'll just go over these real fast. If you've been on one of my presentations, I always kind of like to include these owls. All these pictures are from Vance Solseth and Zach Steinhauser. This was one that was in my yard. That was the male, and the female was in the Screech Owl box that we have. And it was in a magnolia tree, and Zach came by and took a picture of that, and it looks like a cranky eastern Screech Owl, doesn't it? And see if you can hear on this great horned owl that Vance captured, see if you can hear who's asleep, me too. So who's asleep, me too. Isn't that neat? I'm going to play it one more time. Who's asleep, me too. So if you're participating in the GBBC, you're out at night, you're obviously probably not going to see owls, but you can still identify them by ear. So I want y'all to practice those and submit those for science. Let's listen to the cranky eastern screech owl here. And that'll kind of make a chill go up your spine, right? And it sounds like a whinny. That's how it's described, and it does sound like a if one of those little My Little Pony toys could whinny, that's probably what they would sound like. But they'll also have this flat call. It just stays flat. It's like and it doesn't go up and it doesn't go down. It just stays flat. And Merlin has that to practice. And then the barred owl, the famous "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for y'all?" Whenever we do presentations in front of kids, they can hear that so easily. They get all fired up, and it makes me happy to see kids get fired up over nature. Here, I'll play that one more time. So who cooks for you? Who cooks for y'all? Really neat. All right, so we're going to wrap up here. I want y'all, if you're not gardening for nature, to consider gardening for nature. This is the horticulturist, his property 3 years ago, and that's what it looks like not right now in the wintertime, but that's what it looked like last year. So think about the wildlife that's supported on this picture on the left, and think about the wildlife that's supported here. Not only are you providing habitat for birds, okay, through cover and food. Think about all the habitat you're providing for salamanders, for lizards, for other reptiles and amphibians. And think about all the insects that are here compared to here. And that's what we need. We need an abundance of insects, because almost all wildlife, will consume insects, either directly or indirectly. And think about the life that this yard has compared to this yard. It always, every single time I look at this picture, it makes me think of coming out this front door with a cup of coffee. And if I'm coming out of this front door with a cup of coffee, I'm going back inside because it's not interesting. If I come outside right here with a cup of coffee, I'm going to be finding dragonflies, butterflies, probably seeing some really neat birds. I'm looking at life happen right in front of me. And I even saw a zebra longwing the one time that I visited his house. I saw a zebra longwing, not the zebra swallowtail butterfly, but Florida's state butterfly, the zebra longwing, flitting through his yard, among other skippers, butterflies that we have, and it was just really cool. I like to just kind of let my eyes relax when I get to a place like this, and then all of a sudden you'll just see things flying all over the place, and you don't see that here, right? You don't. You see it in a garden like this, on a property like this. So I encourage all of y'all to do it, not only for wildlife, but for y'all's enjoyment as well. And just to give you a couple things, little, not really updates, but what we do. This number last year was right at 270, but I just installed 20 more prothonotary boxes with DNR a couple weeks ago. I'm installing some with Dominion Energy, and those are going to be 20. And I'm meeting with a company called Invista around Kershaw or Lancaster or one of those areas, and installing 20 with them as well. So in just a couple months, that number will be up to 330 boxes. We have plans to partner with a local college, and hopefully, South Carolina Audubon and some other nature organizations to actually start gathering data, where these boxes are, how these boxes are facing, what habitat, are they in the water, are they out of the water, and which ones are most successful, so we can help this bird, the prothonotary warbler, that's declined about 45% in the last 50 years. And this bird, it loves the Carolinas as a breeding spot. Around 35% of their entire population come to the Carolinas to breed, based on a study. And that bird winters, most of them winter down in Colombia, South America. So that's just one of the many conservation projects that we work on. We advocate, so we support those laws that support wildlife, like the turtle bill here. And look, our governor has a smile on his face. See, everybody loves nature. You don't have to be a little kid. Even our governor loves nature. Little box turtle he's enjoying right there. And, we have bird and snake and conservation wildlife classes. We were doing them in person, but now we're doing them over Zoom, and it enables us more efficiently to see more schools all over the state. So, it doesn't matter if you're at the coast or here in the Midlands or up in the upper state. If y'all have a school that you want me to teach a class for, just connect me, email me, please. The more kids we reach, the better off their lives are going to be, and the better off wildlife is going to be. We have, obviously we have the webinars, and you can go to our YouTube page. I think we have like 23 or 24 classes now, from oysters, insects, to me talking about birds, all sorts of great webinars on our YouTube page. And we can't do this without y'all. We're a nonprofit, guys. So if y'all like the idea of us getting in front of students and connecting them to our planet, in hopes that they are better stewards of our planet and caretakers of our planet, support us financially. I get paid to talk to schools, and your money helps me do that. We need money to install bird boxes at schools for free. So support us, to do that. All this costs money. The poles that we buy, the predator guards, the boxes, the hardware that goes into it, all that costs money, the time to support. So please support us so we can do more of it, please. And I'll get to the questions now after all that.
Okay. And I did put a note in the chat box, but we will follow up with everyone who registered today, and we've been recording this, and we will send a link to the recording to everyone if you want to watch it again, or share it with your friends. We'll have it on our YouTube channel. I had a question in the chat box about native plant sources, so we'll send you that information as a follow-up as well. And as well as the link to donate to help us support these webinars into the future, as well as all of our conservation advocacy work. So Jay, we did have a couple of questions. There was discussion in the chat box back and forth between a few folks about the difference between downy woodpeckers and hairy woodpeckers. And I think we've answered that one with some of the other participants, with the hairy woodpeckers bill being a lot longer than the downy woodpecker, and the hairy woodpeckers just being a lot bigger. Is that your
yeah, a lot bigger is only about an inch or so. It's not that much bigger. So when you see a downy woodpecker by itself, what are you going to compare it to? That's what makes it really tough. So if there's a downy right next to a hairy, which I've never seen before, but I do know it happens. If you're that lucky, that's fantastic, but you're probably not going to be. So yeah, once you see that bill on a down or a hairy woodpecker, you're going to say, oh, okay, that's what a hairy looks like. I mean, it has a huge bill. The coloration is almost identical to the downy, so that's kind of tough to use. Overall size, I mean, once you get used to it, maybe you can use that, but I really use that bill. Everything about it is bigger. The way it hits trees is louder, it's harder. It usually is on the main part of the tree or a really, really large branch. The downy woodpeckers will usually go on small parts of the tree. It'll go on the big ones too, but it will go on smaller parts of the tree. It'll even go on little vines and forage there. You don't usually see the hairy woodpecker doing that.
Okay. And I see a lot of woodpeckers coming to my suet, and there was a question about how long suet lasts in the refrigerator, I guess, if we've had it sitting in our refrigerator since last winter. Any thoughts on that?
I don't know if anything's sitting in the refrigerator that long, I'm probably tossing it. If I'm going to eat it or if I'm going to feed an animal with it. So yeah, I mean, that's a while. So I would probably toss that and maybe make some more. Or you can just go to a store and make sure it's American made. So there's nothing, crazy in it. Ace Hardware, Lowe's, Walmart, all these places sell suet, and you can get it for 80 cents, for a square, and that'll last you for a good week. Even if there's a lot of birds there. You can go to Wild Birds Unlimited. They're all over the state. They have stuff that makes me want to eat it. If y'all have ever eaten a kind bar, that's what it looks like, but big fat kind bars. But they cost a little bit more money. But the quality is fantastic. It'll bring the birds in. They have one that's all seed. And I bought one the other day. It was probably $4, and that was annihilated. So that didn't last as long as the ones that I bought from Ace Hardware. But both of them are totally fine.
And we do have a link on our website where you can make your own suet. So it's a recipe for that. And we usually do suggest that you label it so your family members don't try to eat it, because it does smell like cookie dough. Okay, we had a comment that someone has seen a lot of barn owls moving during the day in Kershaw County, barn with an N. So do those get counted in the Great Backyard Bird Count as well?
Oh yeah, any bird gets counted. Unless there's probably not a location or a option for one of those white domestic ducks. But yeah, I mean, if you see a barn owl, that owl has struggled just because of the development and urban sprawl and all that stuff. So yes, any owl, any bird of prey, any songbird, and any what we would consider, I guess, a wild bird, would be counted. And once you look at the list, or submit a list, you'll see all the options for birds. So yeah, any bird like that, definitely count it. Absolutely.
All right. For the common sparrows that we have in this area, do the male and females usually look the same?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that was a quick answer. All right. Can you differentiate between the feet of perching birds versus climbing birds?
Yeah, well, so I think what you're going to find are their talons, right, are going to be different. I think you're going to have more toes, let's call them toes, in the front of perching birds than you would on climbing. I think your climbers will have 2 up front and 2 behind, maybe. I'm not a biologist, but I have read about that, and I might be right. But there's I think the term, one's like zygodactyl, and there's another something dactyl. They're really cool, funky words that describe them. But yeah, that's a quick Google search. And there's really good books. I know Sibley's just came out with a book not too long ago that describe the feet of the birds that you're talking about. But sorry, I don't have a clear answer for you, but that can easily be found, and I need to research that myself.
Okay. For the Great Backyard Bird Count, we have a question. If we use Merlin for the count, are we done, or is there something else to fill out too?
You'll click submit, and so once you've done that, it's recorded. eBird, you can go to eBird. If you have the app, just pull it up while you're birding and you just submit it and you're done. If you go to the eBird website, you submit it and you're done. On Merlin, you basically go to the birds that you're seeing. You kind of click on them. And it's recorded. They're all kind of tied into each other. The same organizations, or the one organization kind of runs them all.
That's great to avoid confusion, hopefully.
Yeah. If you have trouble,
Okay.
just email me.
We have a question about a hawk. I have a huge hawk that frequents my roof. I have a big subdivision being built below me. How can I support the hawk?
Subdivision being built below me. That hawk is probably there because of squirrels. If it's a large hawk, it's probably not one of your what's considered a accipiter, like a Cooper's hawk or a sharpshin hawk that kind of focuses on birds. So if it's a large hawk, you're probably talking red-shouldered or a red-tailed hawk, and it's probably eating some mammals around there. So as long as you have a healthy squirrel population or rodent population, you're probably going to support them. So if there are trees that are just being annihilated in that neighborhood, encourage your neighbors to plant nice native trees. Oaks and our red maple. Hickories are fantastic. Plant large deciduous trees for those birds, not only to find for them to support squirrels, but to provide nesting for those hawks. I know a tree takes a long time to grow, but that's what I would do. Encourage your neighbors to keep the trees or to install the trees. If they're non-native, cut them down, replace them with a native tree. But as long as you have squirrels, you'll keep the hawks.
That's great. And like I said, we'll send out with our follow-up message, we'll send out a list of native plants that are valuable for wildlife. And also we have some suggestions on our website of places you can find native plants. So I'll send all that information to you. We've got one more question that just popped up. Do you have a suggestion for a camera lens attachment for an iPhone that will pull the birds in closer?
No. I tried being a photographer and a birder at the same time, and I focused more on trying to capture the bird in a good picture than I did, and I didn't enjoy birding as much. So I just don't do it whenever I'm out. But there's plenty of photographers out. I'm sure somebody could help you there, or just Google it. Remember, Google's a very easy thing to use, and just search and you'll find something for you. There's probably plenty of stores that can help you with that too. But sorry, I can't help you at all with that.
Yeah, I have a SLR camera with a long lens, but I've not tried to use my iPhone to get birds. It's just I just don't have luck with that. They're too quick. So, all right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we will follow up with you shortly. And I hope you will join us again for another webinar or some of our upcoming events this year as soon as we can safely do those. So hope you all enjoy the Great Backyard Bird Count this weekend, right, Jay? Start tomorrow.
Friday,
Start tomorrow. All right.
Yep.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you again soon.
All right. Happy birding, y'all.